So guys, in the last video we discussed about how to take input from a user using simple HTML form, right? So in this video we are going to use a form tag or a Spring MVC form tag to take input from a user. Its syntax is quite similar to simple HTML form, but in simple HTML form we were using independent values, right? But in form tag or a Spring MVC form tag we will bind models, right? We will create simple model class and we will use those values in that form, and the data will get binded directly to that model class. So it is quite advanced version of simple HTML form, right? Spring MVC provides such kinds of forms, so we are going to use that form in this video. So without wasting much time, let's get started. So we are going to use the last project because we will see the differences between simple HTML form and Spring MVC form tag, right? So we will open our last project, and first, to use a Spring MVC tag or a Spring MVC form tag, you have to import a library or a dependency in your pom.xml file. So just go to that pom.xml file and you have to import this dependency, right? You can directly go to this URL and you will get the dependency declaration, and just copy this dependency from its repositories and paste it here, right? So you need Taglib dependency, right, to work on a Spring MVC form tag. After that, we need a model where the form tag data or a form data will get binded, right? So we will go to that package and we will click on our base package and right click on it and create a new package, and we will call it a model. Okay. And inside it, we will create a model class. So right click on new and select a class here. Okay, and we will put the name of it admin and click on finish. Okay, so for admin we can use name, private string, name, private string. We can use multiple values for this. I am just creating this class for example, but in real-time projects, or if you are working on some college-based project or a school-based project, you can create multiple values on the basis of your requirement, right? Private string password, and we will create another value, private int phone number. Okay, or what we can use, name, email, password, phone number, or we can use some city. Okay, now we will create getter setter for these variables, right? So we will use shortcut to create getter setter. Just go to source and generate getters and setters, select all and click on finish, right? So our getter setter is created, and we will use create constructor also. So we will generate custom constructor using fields, select, already selected, click on generate, and we can create two string methods. Whatever you want to create you can create, right? So I am just creating generate. I will click on generate to a string. So we will select only fields, not methods, and click on generate, right? So now our model class is created. We created 3 to 4 fields like name, email, password, phone number, city. Make sure that whatever form data you want from the user, all the values should present here. Like if you want some other values, like if you want pin code, right? So you have to create a variable of a pin code type. If you want some other details, like if you want some address, then you have to create a field for address, because in form tag or Spring MVC form tag we use path of models, right? So that data should get automatically binded to that path. I will show you how to do that. Okay, so our admin.java is configured and created. Now next step is we will go to user input controller and you can create a separate controller for it, but I am following the last one. And we will create a mapping for it, or a mapping methods for it. So in the last video we discussed for a simple HTML form we used a default value here, and for submit we created this method, right? So similarly we will create Getpost method for Spring MVC Form Tag also. So we can copy the last method here, and we will paste it here, and we will change the method name admin input. Okay, and we will change the admin name, sorry, URL. Okay, and we will create a JSP page for this admin URL. So we will name it admin input. Okay, just go to that JSP, right click on it, new, other. So just select JSP file, next, make sure the name should be same, admin input. Okay, click on finish. Okay, so our admin input is created. See, it's a simple, currently it is a simple HTML page, right? So if you directly use form tag, then Spring doesn't know that, HTML doesn't know that what is form tag or Spring MVC form tag. So you have to declare it, right? So inside head, we will declare that we are going to use form tag or a Spring MVC form tag. Okay, so you have to use this prefix here, and make sure the tag should be same, tag URI should be same, and I will provide this in the description also. You have to just copy it and just paste it here, right? Okay, so now our JSP page knows that we are going to use form tag, Spring MVC special form tag, right? So when you will go in the body, and when you will use form, then as you can see that we are getting multiple types of form option, right? So we will select this form. Okay, so form tag is created. Inside it we will simply create input tags and labels, similarly like HTML form, right? First we will create form label. Okay, inside label we will provide the variable name, right? Whenever we will use path, then it should match your or model and fields, right? So our first field of the model is name, right? So we will use in the path name, right? Name, and we will put here name. Okay, now we will create an input type of form input. Okay, so path should be name. After that we will create another type of label form type label for email, and we will create input type for this email, form input email. Okay, make sure whatever the values you are going to use in your path, it should match to your field, right? Because if you are using here email, then the value, or whatever the value you will enter in that email text field, it will get directly binded to that email of that particular object or particular model object, right? Our another type is, so now we have password, phone number, and city. Okay, so now our form is ready. We have created name, email, password, phone number, city, and then a submit button, right? So our form is created, but we have to define the action, right? Okay, so when the user will click on submit button, then some action should perform, right? So that action we will define in this form tag, right? So we will create an action equal to, we will provide admin submit. Okay, and we will use model attribute, right? Because whatever the values you are going to provide in the such text field, it will get binded to that model, right? This model is of type admin, right? So we will put the model attribute name admin, right? So for that, first we have to define in that controller, right? So first we will go there in user input controller, and we will define in the get method, right? So in the last HTML form example, we didn't define anything in the get type of request mapping method, right? Because we were using simple HTML form to get data and receive data, right? But here we are using model, right? So here to bind values to model in get method, we have a class that is model map, right? So you have to use in the parenthesis of this method admin input request method type of get, and we will use model map model. Okay, we have to import it model map. Okay, we have to use it as a parameter in this parenthesis, right? So now in the model, our next step is we will add a model attribute, right? So in the last example I showed you using a model dot add attribute, right? So we will use same method here, add attribute. Okay, and we provide the name of that attribute that we are going to use on that HTML page or JSP page. So we will put its name as admin. You can put any name you want. Here we will use a simple model. We will provide model as a get parameter, right? So our model is admin. Okay, so you have to import it. Okay, so we don't have a default type of constructor, so we are getting error. So we will create a constructor in that admin class. You can see that our constructor is created here. Now what will happen, like whenever the user will enter the data in this form, like a name, email, password, then those data will get bind to this model, right? This model, and this model is of which type? This model is of type admin type, right? So you are passing here admin, so data will get directly binded to this admin. But in our simple HTML form, we were using simple HTML text fields, like we were using separate values there, right? First name, last name. But here in our post method, the functionality will little bit different, and you will see a better option in respect of simple HTML form, right? So I will show you for a post method also. But here for get type, you have to use model map in your get methods, right? And we will accept the data from the user in this model, and we will use in our post method also, right? So now our model attribute is created, and we will use it on that form tag, right? So in admin input, in the form tag, after action, we will use model attribute. Okay, and we provide the name which we have defined of the model attribute. See, we have used admin here, right? So name should be same here also, and this form is of type post, right? So you have to define it also. Post. Okay, now our form is ready, right, for a get type. For a default request or a get type of request, our method is ready, our page is ready. Now we will take a look of this page, that how it look likes in the browser. So we will just run our project. And our default port is 8080 we defined in our application.properties. If you don't know how to set properties file, how to define server port or prefix or suffix, you can watch my last video of a simple HTML form tag. I have explained in very detail that how you can use Spring MVC view, suffix and prefix, and how we will define port in application.properties. So to get a clearance on this, you can watch my last video. Okay, so now our application is running. Now we will go to some browser. In the browser, we will type localhost :8080, and after that we will provide URL that you have used in your controller class for the mapping of that admin input, right? So you just go to user input and we have used here admin, right? So we will use that value there, localhost admin. Okay, just click on it. Now we will provide some values here in name, email, password, phone number. As you can see that the phone number, its default value is showing, right? So we will use some values here. In name we will provide Spidey. In email stk123@gmail.com. The password we will use 123456. Phone number will be 765. Okay, and city will be wow. Okay, now when you will click on submit button, you will get error. Okay, why? Because you haven't provided the mapping of that post method. I mean, you have just created a get method for that request, right? But when you will click on the submit button, then its action will perform, right? So in the action you have used admin submit, right? But you haven't provided the mapping of this admin submit in your user input controller, right? You have just provided the mapping for admin. Now we will create another method of type post, and its URL we will provide its mapping for admin. What is that? Admin submit, right? Okay, so now create another method of type post. Just copy it and click here, admin submit. Okay, post. Admin output, right? Okay, so now our post method is created, and we will remove this model attribute from here. Okay, so in the parameter of this method we will use models, right? So we have binded our values to a model, so we will use that model here, right? So from this admin input, now the data will be come as an object, right? Because we are binding our values of this form in this admin, right? And this admin is what? This admin is admin class, right? This admin is an object of admin class. So when the post method of when the action will, when the user will click on submit button, and when the action will perform of admin submit, and when the control will come to this method, then the data will come as an object, right? So you can use directly class, you can use directly model in your parameter of this post type method, right? So if you use here, like if you use admin, right, you don't need to specify that it is of a model attribute and what is the value of model attribute, what is the name of model attribute. You don't need to specify anything. So after that we have to use another type of value here, another type of parameter in your parenthesis, that is binding result, right? Because binding result is nothing but a Spring validation class. Like whenever the user will enter some data, then it is in correct format or not, it will check there using binding result. Because in our as you can see that admin input, you are using directly path, right? So you are providing path name, path password, you are directly using path, not a type and anything, right? So data will get directly binded to name or a email or a password. So suppose that in future, if you want to provide validations on these fields, right? So if you provide validation on these fields in your models class, then like you are providing validation for email address, right? So you are providing a pattern that email should be start from or end from @gmail.com, or a phone number, you are providing validations or a pattern on phone number, that phone number should be of length 10, or some field should not be empty. So such kind of validation if you are going to use in upcoming future in your project, so for that you have to use binding result class, right? It whatever the data you will whatever the data will get binded to that model, first it will be validated, right? So it is in correct format or not. So let me show you the its example here, right? So in this post method we will just redirect our, when the user will submit the form, or when the user will perform but click on the submit button, then that action submit will performed and the user will get redirected to its default page. Okay, so if I save it, we are using DevTools, so we don't need to restart our server. Whatever the changes you will make in your Java class, after that your application will get restarted automatically, right? So you have to just go to the browser and you have filled values, right? Name, email ID, password, phone number, city. When you will click on this submit button, then you will get error, right? What type of error you are getting? That field error in object admin or field phone number rejected value, right? What type of here we are getting some code mismatch or a type mismatch, right? Phone number is of type int, right? And if your input is of type string, right? So it is not able to convert your string into int, right? So you are getting error here, right? So for that you have to use binding result, a class which is provided by Spring for validation, right? So just use binding REC, Spring Framework Validation. Okay, so you have to use this class ECRT. Okay, now click on, okay, now save it and go back to the browser again, go back and now click on submit. Okay, so it worked, right? If you want to see the values of this admin, so just use a sysout here and print the values of admin. Save it. Now go back to the browser and go back to again to that admin page and enter some value here. Hence we are not using any validation here, so you can use any values. In some other videos I will show you that how you can use validation. City. Now click on submit. Okay, now go back to this page and as you can see that whatever the value you entered there, you are getting as a response, right? We have used toString method. So toString method in your admin, just go to that model class and we have defined a toString method here, right? So in that format the value is coming here. You can use getter setter also if you want. You can use here getter setter and you can get the values, right? So in this way our form works, Spring MVC form works, right? So let me show you the differences between simple HTML form and Spring MVC form, right? So now I will open a simple HTML form which we have used in our last video of taking input from a user using HTML form. Okay. Okay. So it is our simple HTML form, right? So as we know that if you have worked on HTML, then you know that it's a simple HTML form. It has an action or method, action, and then we have a method and we are using labels here. Then input type, its ID, name, then you are using another label and its input type. So you have to define here it's what type of input it is, like input it is of type text or it is of type password, or what is the type of input, because you are using simple HTML form, right? So whatever the data you will enter there, you have to use in your class, or you will receive all the data individually, right? When you will go to that user input controller, and when you will see the this method, post method, as you can see that we are receiving individual values here, like first name, last name. So it's fine in case of 2 to 3 values, but let's think like when you will work on some real-time projects, and in suppose that if you are working on some inventory related project, right, and you are maintaining store profiles or store related model class, right, so it has a lot of options, it has a lot of fields, so you cannot use form I mean HTML form tag there, right? You cannot use simple HTML form there. In that case, you have to use individual parameters in your parentheses. So it's not a good practice, right? So for that, you can use Spring MVC Form Tag. So if you go to that Spring MVC form, then it's a simple, right? We are using directly path here, right? So whatever the data you will enter in this name, then it will get added directly to that name field of that model, right? So in our user input controller, we are using admin, right? Our model is of admin type. So when you will provide value in your name, then controller or a Spring Boot will call its setter method to set values in the name, right? And when you will use Spring MVC form tag, then it provides you more options like validations. You can validate your form. Okay, so it is one way to use Spring MVC form tag, right? I will show you some tricks here or some magics here, right? So what is the magic? Just go to that admin input.jsp page, and now we will not use this action here, right? So we will just remove this action here and just save it, and just go back to user input controller, and in the value we will use the same URL value as we have used in the get for this method, right? So in the get we have used admin, and here we will use admin, right? Okay, so do you know that it will also work? Let me show you. Now go back to that admin page, admin, just provide the values here. City, sky, you can put any value. Just click on submit. Okay, it worked. Now go back to that page. Okay, so our value is coming. Whatever the value you have entered, it is coming. So now as you can see that for a same URL, you can use for a request type, I mean get type also, and for post also, right? Because here URL doesn't matter actually, because we are providing here a model, right? In the get parameter we have provided a model of type admin, right? Whatever the data you will enter in the form, it will get directly injected to this model, and in the post method we will just receive it without using any model attribute. You can use model attribute also, but if you don't want to use it, don't use it, right? You can use it, you can get the admin value without model attribute also, right? And we are getting some different types of parameters also, like for validation you can validate it, right? So I think in this way you can use Spring MVC form tag in your projects. And when you are working on a Spring Boot or a Spring MVC project, don't use normal forms, right? Use Spring MVC forms. And I think after watching this video, you know the benefits of using Spring MVC form tag. Okay, thank you for watching my video, and see you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.